Hello all, it's Marco from Random Door Media here with another video on the game Rising World. The Rising World game, featuring resource gathering, crafting, building, and a randomly generated open world, was released on the Steam store back in December 2014. The game became popular for its detailed building mechanics and casual playstyle, and to date still has a rating of very positive on the Steam store. Since 2018, the developers have been working on a newer version of the game. I have done several videos on this updated version. Please see my playlist for videos on Rising World. Therefore, for players who are new to the game, or who are interested in playing the new version of Rising World, I thought it would be nice to show some of the game mechanics and features that are available. Some of these features were discovered by myself, but a lot of them were presented by viewers in the comment section of my previous Rising World videos. Thank you again to anyone who pointed out some helpful feature or function in the game. Please note that this video is from January 2023 and therefore applies to whatever version of the game is out now. Information in this video may change over time. The first point that I need to go over is how to actually start the game. The developers originally used Java to program their game, but several years ago switched over to the Unity engine. It is this new Unity engine version that this video is about. To access this version, you cannot use a desktop shortcut. Instead, the game must be started from the Steam library. When prompted with two options, select the new version and click on Play. Selecting Play Rising World runs the older Java version. Next, I want to go over some of the survival elements. This game mode is different from Creative because you have to harvest resources and manage characteristics like hunger, thirst, and health, while in Creative mode you have unlimited resources and have nothing to manage. The survival elements are currently rather simple, mainly consisting of hunger, thirst, and health. If your character gets damaged from falling or walking into a fire, for example, then you can restore health one of two ways. The easiest is by eating certain foods. Pumpkins and apples restore a small amount of health when eaten. The other option is to craft a medkit, which can be costly in materials and has one use. Bandages can be crafted, but they only stop bleeding, they do not affect health. Splints can be crafted as well, but I have not seen a need for those in the game yet. I have not broken a bone in this version of the game. Thirst is handled either by drinking water or consuming certain foods. Watermelon is high in water content and will replenish thirst, while juicy apples restore a small amount. Otherwise, you can drink directly from a water source by getting close to the water and pressing the interact key. You can also craft a water skin or canteen, fill that with water, and drink from it, so that way you have water on the go. For food, there's only a vegetarian option, as there are currently no animals in the game, so the edibles are all plant-based. As you travel around the world, you will find edible plants in a wide variety, from watermelons to carrots to tomatoes. If you simply pick the plant, then you will get the fruit or vegetable. However, if you use a sickle on the plant, then you'll also get either a seed or sapling. Using a hoe, you can turn ground into fertile ground, on which seeds and saplings can be planted. The seed or sapling will then grow into a new plant and, if harvested again with a sickle, will yield the fruit or vegetable and more seeds or saplings. This way you'll be able to maintain your own constant source of food. In order to advance through the tech tree and be able to craft better items, you'll need to find and gather the various metal ores. These are found underground and will require some digging. Personally, when I was on the hunt for ore, I found it easier to walk around and locate high, steep cliffs. Frequently, you'll be able to find exposed metal ores right on the surface. However, if you have the time, and you want a lot of stone maybe for building with, then the old-fashioned way of digging a hole or a tunnel will yield ore as well. If you're placing blocks while constructing some structure, and either make a mistake or you change your mind, you can destroy the misplaced block with an axe or pickaxe. However, if you use a sledgehammer to remove the block, then it will drop and can be picked up. Speaking of blocks, This next section is all about blocks and how they can be reshaped, resized, and customized. When it comes to building structures, Rising World has one of the best and most versatile construction systems of the game, short of a level editor. If you want simplicity, you can use simple cubes to make structures. However, if you want to build something that has more detail and more definition, Rising World offers a variety of block shapes. When you craft or select a block texture in creative mode, you will then select a shape, with several to choose from, ranging from a simple cube, to cylinders, to spheres, to rounded cubes. But this selection is not permanent. While near a workbench, press the X key on the keyboard to bring up the block shape options again and change the shape. Although the game offers a very long list of textures to select from, you can also change the color of the texture as well. After you select a texture, the pattern appears in the upper right. Clicking on the little circle in the texture window brings up another window where you can choose from a myriad of colors. Right-clicking on that little circle resets the texture color back to default. With the block selected from the hotbar, you can then hold down the Shift key and press either the up-down arrows or left-right arrows or the page-up, page-down keys in order to change the size of the block. Each of those keys will alter the block in one of 3 dimensions. While changing the size of a block, you'll see the size near the bottom of the screen. Each key press will change the size in a particular dimension by 0.1. If you want to revert the block back to its original size, then press Shift and Backspace. Another handy tip if you want to change a block to match the dimensions of a block that you already have in place is to look at the target block and press the Insert key. That will change the dimensions of the block in hand to the dimensions of the target. Note that this only changes the dimensions. The block shape and texture are not affected. You can replicate an existing block by looking at the target block and clicking the middle mouse button. In creative mode, this will simply copy that block and have it ready for you to use. However, in survival mode, this only works if you have at least one block with the same texture in your inventory already. By default, the game provides a grid that will help you align your blocks. The size of the grid can be changed by pressing the plus and minus keys on the keyboard. Increasing the grid size will enlarge the grid, and decreasing the size will shrink it, allowing for more precise block placement. Or you can press the G key and turn off the grid entirely, allowing you more freedom to place the blocks anywhere. If you find that placing a block is difficult for some reason, you can try manual positioning. After pressing the right control key on the keyboard, you can then use the arrow and page up, page down keys to move the position of the block. Once the block is where you want it, then right-click to place it. This is a toggle, therefore you need to press the right control key again to exit manual positioning. So if those block customization options were not enough, there's still more. With a block in hand, if you hold down the C key on the keyboard, it brings up a listing of precisions. Remember before, I said that when you use the shift and arrow keys to change the size of a block, at the bottom it shows you the size, and it does it in 0.1 increments? Well, if you want to be more specific than that, you hold down the C key, and you can change the movement and scale precision and rotating even. For example, if I click on the scale precision, I can now change it from the default, which is 0.1 to 0.5, 1, 2, or even 0.01. So I'm going to choose the 0.01, so now when I change the block size, it's incredibly detailed. Like, the change is so tiny, and it reflects at the bottom there what shows the size. If I decrease it, it's now 0.99, 0.98, and so on. And then bring that back up again, click on the arrow to go back to the menu listing, and you can do the same with the movement precision and the rotating. So previously, when rotating a block, once again, you notice at the bottom, it'll rotate it in 15-degree increments. Now you can choose this to change it. You want to do 90 degrees, 45, 0.5. So rotating it, you can have incredibly precise rotation on that. That is silly. Well, it's not silly, it's really good. And there's just more options. Surface edit mode, flipping, mirroring. You can even create your own presets. Collisions on and off, pivot mode, rotation mode, world. You can change that to local or just use the default. Texture scaling is kind of interesting because one of the things that I noticed is that if I was to... let me go back and revert that. Back to the 0.1, just to make things easier for me. When I resized a block, let's say something like, is that 3 by 3. Put one on top. Is that the texture still looked like the regular block. It just was on a bigger block size now. But now, if you... let me reset the size again. But now you can change the texture scale too. 4 times, half, the default, which is just 1, half. So I'm going to go 0.5, and now let's place that block again. So I'm going to resize it back to the 3 by 3 that was before. And now you'll notice that the texture is smaller because now it has the texture of 9 blocks side by side. That's not clear enough. Let's go get a different block. When I first discovered this myself and I was playing around with it, the block that I tested with was this one here. So let's take a look at this one. That's what the texture looks like normally. So if you were to place a bunch of them, then they would look like that. If I was then to increase the size of the block, kind of like what I did with the marble pieces a minute ago, and now, if we take a look at the texture scaling and try something smaller like that, now you see the difference. So this is what it looks like by default. Now here's, by default, even though this is one block, it looks like I placed 9 blocks side by side. It looks like I placed 9 of just the regular blocks. Of course, the texture's changed on that one. There. That's what the default block looks like. Even though I changed the size of the block to 3 by 3, and here's technically one block, it looks like I placed 9 blocks. But by changing the texture scaling, you can make it look like that. So that's all the options that are available by holding down the C key and changing any of the precision options. That's a lot to work with. Currently, Rising World has a pretty small selection of objects that can be crafted. Like, it's not bad, but it's not that many as well. But objects can be affected by the same customization options as the blocks, though. When you have an object in your hand, you can also rotate it, change its size, and so on, and hold down C to bring up the precision to even change the precision on moving and scaling. So with this in mind, you can use existing objects to make other things. For example, when I crafted this clock here, I can place it on a wall and it looks like a regular electronic looking clock. Or I can shrink it down, change the scale of it, and make it into like a little tabletop clock. Or you can even make it bigger and then make it into like a clock tower. It's the same object, just 3 different sizes. Most of these objects can also be placed on top of other objects as well, such as placing this lantern. What's this called? This Toro lantern. I can place it on the table. And of course, if I wanted to change the size of it, then I could still place it on the table as some sort of decoration. Let's go inside the little cabin here, and we'll go over some of the other suggestions that I have. Over here, we're going to start off with the default table. By changing the scale in one direction, you can make a nice coffee table, or by changing the size in 2 directions, you can make this end table. Same thing with this cupboard here. This is the default size. You can shrink it down to make a shorter cupboard. In one of my videos, I made this into a TV stand. Then over here are some more examples. Here's some more objects that you can place on tables, such as the oil lanterns and the candles. I made these 2 lanterns 2 different sizes just to show the comparison. So this one here is the default, and the bigger one is the larger scale. I think it's about 2.5 times the size. And all of these are all the same candle, just resized. So these ones are taller, this one's a bit fatter. And here's another option as well, taking the default door, shrinking it a bit, and changing the rotation, and now I have a trapdoor. And that's just many ways that you can use existing objects and blocks in the Rising World to get more creative. One final piece of information: if you're concerned about getting lost out there in your Rising World, then you can press the F3 key on your keyboard, which will bring up an assortment of information, including things like the weather, your hunger, temperature, and so on. And near the bottom, it shows you the coordinates. Right now, it's showing 1795, 213, and 739. If you press the F3 key again, the coordinates at the bottom will remain on your screen. So what you might want to do is your starting point, or when you establish the base, write down your coordinates. If you ever get lost out there, use the coordinates to make your way back. Pressing the F3 key a 3rd time will have the coordinates disappear. If you're looking for a more legitimate way to get around the world, if you want to find your way back to your base, is by crafting a compass. By default, a compass will work like a regular compass. As you move around, the arrows will point north, but it has a little tiny arrow right in the middle. North and south arrows are a dark color, and there's a little tiny arrow that's like a golden bronze color. That tiny arrow will point to your spawn point by default, or if you've placed a bed in the world and you've used the bed, then the little tiny arrow will point towards the last bed that you stayed in. As you can see, the little tiny arrow is pointing back to my home, which is very cluttered at the moment, and it'll point back to the bed that I used. There, a little bit of handy information as well. I hope you found this video informative and or entertaining. If you have any suggested tips or tricks for Rising World, post them in the comments. If there's more material to go over, I might make another video. If you have not done so already, check out my Rising World series on this channel, and I have other videos on crafting building style games. That's it for now. Take care, everyone.